bit busy, but we can always share some disease. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Oh, welcome guys. Miss Liz in the house, and I'm just going to stick Mark in the back, and we're going to pull up Mark in a few seconds. We're just going to put him in the back, and we're going to get you guys all to join us today because we have an exciting tea to serve to all of you guys. We're going to be serving philanthropy, charity, insurance, and a little bit of Mark's story on why he does what he does today. But before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. We're going to get you over to all those platforms: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Lemonade, Clapper, all those good ones. And if I haven't mentioned them, Miss Liz is on all those platforms as well. When you follow and like and subscribe to Miss Liz's channels and platforms, you're also sharing the tea times and sharing all of these incredible stories that may resonate with somebody out there. Also, check out all the podcast apps, Podcast Bean, Listen Notes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all of those good ones. And check out babyboomers.org because Miss Liz is partnered with babyboomers.org. If you're looking to be on different podcasts and stuff like that as well, you can check them out. They have incredible different podcasts out there with different flavors and different tastes as well. So let's get started with disclaimer and then a beautiful intro with Mark. And then we're going to get Mark Halpern in here and we're going to serve his tea. So let's get started with disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live shows. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experience and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where stories remind us that true success is not measured only by what we achieve for ourselves, but by what we create, protect, and leave behind for others. Today's guest brings us a deeply meaningful conversation about legacy, family, resilience, philanthropy, and turning life's hardest moments into a mission that serves humanity. Please join me in welcoming Mark Halpern from wealthinsurance.com, financial strategist, speaker, mentor, and visionary leader whose life journey transforms personal tragedy into purpose-driven mission. At just 11 years old, Mark lost his father suddenly, leaving his family without financial protection. That painful experience shaped the work he has dedicated his life to for more than 30 years, helping families prepare, protect loved ones, and build meaningful legacies that extend far beyond financials. After surviving a near fatal fall that became a major turning point in his life, Mark shifted his focus from chasing success to creating significance, helping inspire charitable giving, family conversations, and a deeper understanding of what legacy really truly means. Today's tea time is about turning pain into purpose, building legacy with intention, family, philanthropy, and humanity. The emotional side of financial planning, why significance matters more than status. Mark reminds us that wealth is not just about money, it is about impact, protection, love, and what we choose to leave behind in the hearts and lives of others. So grab your cup and join us for a heartfelt conversation filled with wisdom, reflection, and real life tea, truth, experience, and awareness. So let me get Mark in here and let's spill some tea. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here, Elizabeth.
Oh, where'd you go?
I'm here.
Oh, there we go. There he is. Welcome, Mark. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about who you are. I've shared a little bit in the intro. Show us a little bit on who you were as a little guy and who you are now.
Sure. Thank you so much. First of all, I really appreciate being here and being able to share some of my wisdom with your audience. I'm Mark Halpern. I'm a father to 5 wonderful kids, married for over 30 years, grandchildren. All my kids are married. It's a really beautiful thing. Very much involved with community and teaching and all that stuff. But professionally, I've been a professional involved in estate planning and tax mitigation and philanthropy for over 35 years now. But my real start, Miss Liz, was actually, as you said, when I was 11 in 1974. And that's when my father, blessed memory, died of a massive heart attack at the age of 50. He was a busy engineer, loved us dearly, but like everyone who's so busy, didn't have a will. There was very little savings, no life insurance. So it was very, very hard for us. We had to develop a struggle muscle very early on because my mother, who was 48 at the time, had to go back to work to support her family. She'd been a stay-at-home mom, so she had to re-enter the workforce and really take care of the family. But fast forward, I work with some of Canada's most successful business owners and entrepreneurs and families. So you'd think they'd have everything all organized and together too. But I'd say that probably 80% of the time, it's just not true. They don't have things organized. They don't have a will. It's not up to date. There's no documentation of where everything is, digital passwords, keys to safety deposit boxes. Nobody's done any planning to see, that they're going to get a check mark to make it to retirement or what the tax bill is going to be. Because as you know, they say there's 2 things, death and taxes. So taxes are a reality, but there's no law that says you have to leave a tip. So that's where I kind of help people along the way.
Well, I like that you brought up the digital password because that is something that a lot of people don't talk about, right? And they don't talk about the digital social media platform. Like a lot of people better get ready when Miss Liz is gone because there's a lot of passwords you're going to need.
Yeah, well, look, I was just dealing with a family. There was just a mother and 2 adult children, and she died suddenly. And the first question is where is everything? And there was no up-to-date will. They had to find the will first of all, right? And then she did have social media pieces that, again, you just can't tap into. You can't go to the bank and say, "Hi, I'm Elizabeth, the daughter of Shirley, and I want to help my mom in the estate." It ain't going to happen. So that's why it's really important that people take a little bit of time to do some of this planning. It really does give people peace of mind, knowing that things are all organized and together.
I want to ask you a question, Mark. How long does it take to plan a will?
Fast. If you have first of all, you have to know why you need a will. I think that's a very important question because only 50% of Canadians have a will and the other 50, I don't know if they're really up to date. But in Canada, the government has a formula for how your assets are distributed if you die. Let's assume you have a spouse and you have minor children. Let's say you have 2 minor children. The government says the first $300,000 goes to the surviving spouse, and the balance is divided between the spouse and the minor children equally. So a third, a third, a third. And those minor children, their money is invested by a public trustee, and it's put into GICs until they turn 18 when they get all the money. Is that something you would want to have happen in your life? Miss Liz? Probably
Mm,
not.
no. What
Probably
is a
not. Right.
GIC, Mark?
I like a guaranteed income certificate, like investing in a 4% a note at the bank, right? Like a term deposit would be a GIC. It doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, they put it into the least interest paying investment because they can't afford to have any loss with that money because they're the trustee for the kids. But the bottom line is, it's not what you would want to have for your family. Nobody would. So therefore, getting a will today is very easy. If you're not a very complicated person, you have a house, you have some investments, some RSPs, you can actually do it online. There are electronic wills right now, like Epilogue, Willful as an example, where you can actually do an online will, and it's good as can be, right? There are some people who will do a will where they'll do it just writing it down. Again, I wouldn't recommend that because that would be very contestable. But that's a fast process. If you have a more complicated estate, like maybe you have a company or you have some other holdings, then you might need the use of a professional lawyer. And that, depending on whether you need downtown or Main Street, it'll be a few $100s to get something in place. But the important thing is just to make sure you get that ink on paper to know that, you're covered. And even more important than that, Miss Liz, is something called a power of attorney. A power of attorney, people are not aware of the fact that you need two powers of attorney. One power of attorney says that if you become incapacitated, it allows somebody to make financial decisions for you. It could be real estate, your business, your social, whatever the case. The other power of attorneys allow somebody to make decisions on your personal health care. And it might not be the same person, but I had a situation where a mother and father, the mother had a stroke, father was looking after the mother for years, and then the father became sick. So now both parents were incapacitated. The two daughters flew back from overseas to say, here we are, we're here to help our parents. Meanwhile, the bank said, sorry, we can't give you any information. So we had to hire an estate lawyer to help get them appointed to be the trustee for that estate. But why put your family through that? It's time, it's anxiety, and it's more costs. So this is just called like estate planning 101, called it easy financial housekeeping. Just sit down with a professional, certified financial planner, somebody who can talk to you about the big picture and make sure that all of these boxes are checked.
So what's the difference between Canada and the United States when it comes to a living will?
Again, a living will, let's talk about it. A living will would be, when it comes to powers of attorney, there's a power of attorney for healthcare and for financial. But a living will is one, what would you want to have happen if you are incapacitated? Meaning, having the plug pulled, or being, kept on machinery, that type of thing. What are your wishes? They're more emotional type wishes that are structured. So again, there are different rules and different laws because in the States, you've got federal, you've got state laws. Here we've got pretty much a federal law of Canadian, and then we've got the provinces are very similar, except for Quebec, which is really very, very different. But again, these are the types of things that the lawyer that you're working with can explain very easily.
So Mark, there's a difference between Ontario and Quebec?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Do you want to share a little
sure.
bit about that? Because I have listeners from both sides of Ontario and Quebec. So
yeah, a lot of it has to do with beneficiaries. With you have beneficiaries on your wills or beneficiaries on your life insurance, that could be an issue. There are also different tax treatments in terms of what's taxed and what's not taxed. So, if you are in Quebec, definitely sit down with somebody who is experienced with Quebec laws. Also, just some of the French, the Francophone, differences over there. You just want to make sure that you're dealing with somebody as if you went to a doctor, right? You can't have somebody give you a prescription without a proper diagnosis. They call that malpractice. So make sure that you're sitting down with somebody who's going to look at the big picture, ask you all the right questions, and then come back to you and say, here's the analysis recommendations. These are the things you need to take care of. And then hopefully put together, calendarize it. When do you want to have all of this done and who's going to do it for me? And I also feel that a lot of people, they might have an accountant or a lawyer or an investment person, but nobody's talking to each other. They all work in these separate silos. You need to have collaboration. The world's changed so much and things have become so complex that you need experts in each of these verticals, and they all have to be speaking to each other. That's just the reality today.
Absolutely right. And we got to stop the dividing or different services that are pulling you to the left and pulling you to the right. And then you're all confused, right? You're just like, oh my goodness, like, where do I go? Like,
Right. And it's not just politics, but it's like in life, you can't be territorial. Like, it used to be that people had conversations and you could argue both sides. You don't just, don't just cancel somebody because they don't agree with you. Sometimes even in the professionals world, they've got an idea. This is how things are done. And they might not take into account somebody else's perspective. I heard something very good, Miss Liz, that a woman was complaining to her husband that she looked out the window and she saw the neighbors were hanging up all their laundry, and she said, wow, that family, like everything's so dirty. Like what are they rinsing all their clothes in dirty water? And it's like, what do they pour? What's going on? Anyway, one day the husband goes ahead and he washes the window in their house. And he says, come over here. And she goes, wow, they decided to start cleaning their laundry properly. That's a good why, because her window was full of dirt. So that's what she saw. We have to make sure that our window is clean.
I like that. Clean your window. That's a good statement for everybody. Clean your window.
Yeah, we'd be friends. There'd be less hostilities.
Mark, we have a question that just came in from Kelly Grant, and I want to get that out to you. It's what inspired Mark to begin the 1 billion moonshot mission. We got some listeners that know a little bit about what you're doing there, Mark. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. First of all, I believe in a word. It's called tzedakah. Tzedakah is a Hebrew word that's often mistranslated as charity. It actually means righteousness or justice. We have an obligation. If you have an obligation to give back, to help other people. And there are two ways to do that. I can either write a check myself, or I can educate and show other people how to write checks. And by doing so, that means I can create a lot more charity and at the same time, hopefully get a lot of merit. Anyway, Kelly, the main thing here is that I found out some information about charitable giving that probably 90% of professional advisors do not know and do not talk about, and probably the same amount of charities don't know or don't talk about because they're just focusing on current gifts to sort of keep the lights on in their charity. And what's that? Is that on death, charitable donations can be used to mitigate 100% of estate taxes, 100%, including going back the year prior. That means for every $2 you give to charity when you die, you turn $1 of tax into $1 of impact or of legacy. So I was really having a lot of success incorporating for clients strategic philanthropy in their estate planning. Instead of just saying, yeah, I want to give $10,000 to Sick Kids Hospital or to Ronald McDonald, let's talk about a strategy in terms of how can I leave more for my family and less for the CRA. Why? Because each of us have three possible beneficiaries to our estate. You have family, you've got charity, and you've got the government. And each of us can pick two of those. Which two would you pick, Miss Liz? Most people would say, I'll take
family and charity.
100%. So a lot of people think that, it's true, charity begins at home, but people think that if they give to charity, they're going to be disinheriting their kids. But you have to appreciate that giving to charity is not about disinheriting your kids. It's about adopting charities you care about and disinheriting the tax department. Why? Because the tax department has introduced 25 different pieces of legislation since 1995 for Canadians to be more giving, more charitable, because they know they can't sustain the social fabric in our country. So I have a mission. It's three parts. One, educate professional advisors and charities to incorporate strategic philanthropy in estate planning or in donor planning. Number two, we live in a country that people know what insurance is. Very few people understand what it can really do, especially around philanthropy. And number three, we're trying to build a national community of 100 professional advisors and charities that if each of us are creating $10 million of current or legacy gifts, often just by converting tax into charity, that's 100 times 10 million, that's $1 billion. And our goal is to do that on an annual basis hopefully getting it off the ground by the end of 2030. We've already got about 24 who have already stepped forward. It's non-obligatory, but we want to give advisors and charities and professionals all the tools they need as gatekeepers to understand how they could be helping their clients have so much impact. And again, using house money, which is taxes, in order to do that.
Mark, why do you feel people don't know about what they can do with their funds?
Yeah, well, first of all, people are a bit allergic to planning in general. Let's face it. It's like right now we're watching the hockey playoffs, right? Go Habs, go! I mean, you're close enough in Cornwall that you would pick up on some of that.
I'm not a Habs fan, but my grandpa was, so I'll cheer them on.
Unfortunately, I'm a lifelong Leafs laughing stock fan. So
I'm a trader. I'm a Chicago Blackhawk fan.
I prefer them too. Anyway, so I'd say that the people don't like to do planning, but if you look at the sports analogy, you'll see that the team that wins the Stanley Cup at the end of a very, very grueling spring is the team that has the best defense, the best goalie, and the best defenseman. Okay. And for a lot of people, especially business owners, entrepreneurs, they're all offense. They like to build, create, keep creating, right? But they don't have the defense looked after. And it's not sexy, but it's the type of thing that helps people win championships. That's my business. My business is helping successful business owners with the defense. And that means that you getting back to that idea of having a team, it doesn't mean that you're excluding the accountant. You got to get the accountant involved from day one, but he's an expert in numbers. The lawyer is an expert in contracts, in plans and wills, et cetera, like that. The life insurance person is an expert on the insurance side. And then the philanthropy person really can help all three of those professionals to maximize the impact for the client. That's why it comes back to collaboration. So it's shocking, Kelly, that, I was just with a family where the mother died. There was a $3.4 million estate tax. The family was going to use the proceeds from the sale of her house to pay the tax. And then I got introduced to them. And instead of giving $3.4 million to the government, they wrote a $7 million check to their family foundation, turned the $3.4 million of tax totally into legacy. And then we used insurance to replace the gift. So in other words, the family was made totally whole. It was just a timing issue. But again, it's like just moving the shells around. So as you can see, I get very excited about this. No two situations are the same. I think what you need to do is do some investing of time to understand how all these things work. And if you're an advisor, you might want to actually go to my powerofplatinum.com website. It's a mentoring coaching program for professional advisors and charities to become experts in strategic philanthropy, especially in using life insurance for high net worth families. So those are just some of the ideas.
And that's the website that I just pulled up, right? That you just mentioned?
No, that's the Willpower website. That's actually a great, I'll tell you a little bit about that thing also. I think it's very cool. But over 10 years ago in the UK, they did research to see that only of anybody who had a will in the UK, only 5% had included a bequested charity in their will. So what they did was over 10 years, they got money from all the charities and they bought retail advertising with a very simple and powerful message. Leave a gift in your will. That was it. After 10 years of this heavy advertising, the research said it went from 5% to 9% of people were leaving bequests and wills, which represents 50 billion, that's with a B, $50 billion of charity in the UK. We launched this now 2 years ago through the Canadian Association of Gift Planners with a goal to create $40 billion. And we're way ahead of schedule here. And every advisor, if you go to the list that you have there, Ms. Liz, of willpower.ca, you can find out what it's all about and actually get involved and be one of those shakers and movers to be incorporating this into conversations you're having with clients and donors.
See, and this is why I have guests like you on, Mark, so we can get the information out there, because that's the thing. We don't have these conversations, right? We're just like, oh, well, that's insurance. No, close the door. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to know about it, but then you sit down, you have a cup of tea with Miss Liz and you get to know the information. You get that good information out there. And that's what I love about having guests like you, Mark, on, because you have the experience, you have the knowledge, and you're giving the right information out to the listeners. Tell us a little bit about this website that I keep pulling up, is the wealthinsurance.com. What is that about? Is that
That's my business. I'm the CEO of wealthinsurance.com. It really is. We as I said, we work with business owners, entrepreneurs, incorporated professionals, and generous families, and we're involved with three different things. One is estate planning. Estate planning, like we talked about at the beginning with wills, is just making sure that your financial architecture and your financial furniture actually line up with today's reality. That would be basic things: wills, powers of attorney, how do you own things, shareholders agreements, titles, where is everything? Do you have an estate? Just basic estate planning 101. The second area that we're involved with at Wealth Insurance is tax mitigation strategies. So we specialize in permanent tax exempt life insurance, but we help people to either, if you're a business owner, to create like a tax-free pipeline to convert corporate dollars into personal dollars, or almost like today people have a TFSA. It's only limited to $7,000. We can set up a no limit TFSA for people personally or corporately, also using insurance, or things like individual pension plans to be able to get money out of a company. There's no single thing. It is all unique to each person. And then the third area that wealth insurance is about is philanthropy. It's about helping people create enduring legacies for their family, often just by converting tax into charity. And all this requires is basically sitting down, having a conversation, finding out what's important to you, and then really crafting the plan that you likely don't have right now with your professional advisors.
Well, thank you for that information. I really appreciate it, and the listeners are appreciating it as well today. We got a couple of questions that are coming in, Mark, that I would just like to get out to you. From Nick, we have, what motivated Mark to continue this mission after 30 years?
That's a great question, Nick. First of all, I love what I do. I really do. Remember, unfortunately, I come from it honestly. My father died when I was 11. There was no insurance. I know how hard it was for my mom. I know how hard it was for us. And I have an unfair advantage, I find, in that growing up poor, it forced me to really develop a struggle muscle. Like, I've got 5 kids, I want to spoil them, but at the same time, I don't want them to feel entitled. They know that they've got to work and you make money and you have to be responsible and take on responsibility. But it really bothered me along the way, Nick, that I would see people who just did not have things organized. And they were one incident away from a huge, huge tax disposition. Especially today, if you're a single, widowed, or divorced person, you don't realize how close you are to a very, very big tax disposition. Why? Because in Canada, if you have a spouse and you die, everything rolls over to your spouse tax-free. It's only on the second to die of a husband and wife that the government assumes you sold everything at market value. That means if you have an RSP, simple RSP of $1 million, it's only worth $420,000 because the government's going to take 53.53% of that. If you have any investments, like let's say a condo you invested in, not your principal residence, an investment piece of property or a cottage, the government's going to want 27% of all the growth in that piece of property. If you have a company, a holding company or an operating company, the government's going to want anywhere between 47 to 70% of that money. So you might be feeling very comfortable on paper, like, look at me, but it's what you have at the end. So the time to deal with this is while the sun is shining. That's when we can use things like tax exempt insurance to preserve all of your wealth, shut out the government, include charity. And basically that gets me excited because I get to educate people and share wisdom and get them motivated to get these things done while the sun is shining.
I think it's important to educate people because a lot of people are not educated, when it comes to this. It's not something that we learn in school either. We don't bring this into financial wellness into schools, and I wish they would bring it into the schools. Have you gone into schools, Mark?
Well, I do. Absolutely. I've gone into schools. I've gone into churches. I've gone into synagogues. I've gone into mosques. It really comes down to, having people who see this as important and sort of being cheerleaders or ambassadors to sort of move this along. So maybe if it starts off with you, if you could be doing something, it would definitely, hopefully move the to the side of other people following you and getting these things done. I find that we in the insurance business in particular, if you've gone through an experience in life, I have the ability to communicate that in a very passionate way. So hopefully it's contagious, and it'll get other people thinking as well, not just to take care of their own stuff, but actually to incorporate this in their own planning for clients or their families.
Absolutely. Well, we have a question here from Jason, and he says, how did personal tragedies shape Mark's view on legacy and purpose?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I've met a lot of people along the way who have done very well, Jason. In other words, they've built up a nest egg. They have assets. Most of them have not done any planning to see what the tax bill is going to be now or on 120. But what they haven't realized is that they're not going to spend all of their money in their lifetime, which really means that they're the custodian or trustee for the next generation. But what they're not aware of is that they're partnering with the tax department on that money. So by going through a process, they can see what the tax bill is and hopefully use some of that never spend money that they're just paying taxes on to preserve all of the estate for family or for charity or for both. And I think that once people sort of see the numbers, and I'll give you an example, Elizabeth. Your listeners collect something called CPP, Canada Pension Plan, right? If you're in Canada, in the States, it's Social Security. So in Canada, it's an amount of money you start getting when you're 65. Most people who are wealthy, they just think it's a novelty to be a pensioner, but it's tax reinvested and taxed again. And when they die, it ends too. Instead, they like to take that money that they don't need, and they could create a $1.5 million life insurance policy just with CPP, just with having the CPP pay for that. You'll pay no taxes on your CPP because it'll be a charitable donation, but now you'll have a $1.5 million charitable legacy for your family. Or pay the tax on the CPP, leave the $1.5 million to charity when you die, and now you've saved $750,000 of estate taxes. Or take the CPP, get the $1.5 million and let your grandchildren be the beneficiary of that. At 6%, that's going to generate $90,000 a year forever for your grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I have a feeling they're going to remember your name when they're still collecting that long after we've left this planet. So again, it all comes down to, how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah.
Going from success to significance. I'm successful, but now I want to be significant. So that comes with, how do you want to be remembered?
Well, it kind of goes into Diona's question is, how can ordinary families start building a meaningful legacy?
It's great. Well, first of all, I believe in tithing, so I think that you should really, depending on where you come from, we tithe 10% of our money, and it's one of the only things you can test God with. They say only with charity, you can test it and you get it back. Okay. So it's like, but that would be a great way and then to decide as a family, okay, we've got this amount of money. What's important? Grab mom and dad, bring the kids, say, what's important? Or how about this? Give your kids some money every year and say, here, kids, here's $1,000. And I want you to decide what charity to give it to. Let them research the charity. Let them get involved. Let them volunteer over there. You're going to be teaching them such values. That's the lowest, I guess, the lowest level of getting started on legacy. But, if you have a life insurance policy in place right now, why not go ahead and change the beneficiary and say 1% of it is going to go to a charity? 1%, what's 1% of $1 million? It's $10,000. It's not. And when you do give that $10,000, you're going to get a charitable receipt that saves your estate $5,000 of taxes. Again, but now you can talk to your kids. Hey, kids, we're giving away $10,000. Or along the way, if you have stocks, you have appreciated securities like stocks or ETFs and mutual funds, know that when you sell those, you're going to give 27% of the gains to the government. Why not instead donate them in kind, like the certificates to charity, in which case the government says there's no capital gains taxes, zero. And you get a charitable receipt for the market value when you pass that over. That saves you a ton of tax. So it's not about what you have, it's about what you keep at the end of the day. So those are just a few things to get started with your family on a basic level.
Mark, I really like that you said bring the kids into it, because it actually shows them on how to research and see what kind of charities that they're looking into, kind of get a young mindset. We have so many young entrepreneurs out there, like children entrepreneurs that are making money, and this would be a good way for them to learn as well.
Well, I'm just going to add on that, they say that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? That's when the weather conditions are perfect. When there's a storm out, the apple's far from the tree. And when there's a tsunami of values like there is today, the apple doesn't even know it came from a tree. So, there are ways. They say that when you die once. Sorry, you live once, but you die twice. Why do you die twice? Dying once is when you stop breathing. The other time you die is when people stop talking about you. They stop mentioning your name. So if you want to pass along values to your grandkids, forget the kids, we've already messed up there, but certainly with the grandkids.
Let's move on to the next group.
Yeah, let's move on to the next generation. Hopefully we'll do better on the second time around. But if you want to pass along values to your grandkids, and one of the best ways is obviously through religion, but it's also through philanthropy. It's an amazing tool. And if you just know you could be using money that's table stakes, money that's just supposed to be going to the CRA, and now you're using that money to create legacies that your grandkids could use, it all starts early on in life. So, again, sit down, reach out to us. We have a ton of stuff that we can educate people with. We have one-pagers, we have tax letter digests, we have beautiful things that people can read into. And also, we're not territorial. Let's meet with you and your advisor. Your advisor can do all the work. We just want to educate you and get them involved. They can do all the execution. We just want to make sure that people are taking advantage of what they don't know about now.
Absolutely. Well, we have a question here from Richard, and it's, how can business owners create impact beyond financial success?
It's a great question, Richard. As a matter of fact, I love this. If you reach out to me, I have something. It's 10 ways to become an entrepreneurial, philanthropic business owner. And it's a great article I wrote for a couple of publications. But there are different kinds of people who have motivations to give to charity. Some people give, they want to be completely anonymous, right? I like those people. Some people give because they want to encourage other people to give, right? Some people give because they want to create immortality. They want their name on a building or something. Some people do it for the tax, but there are other people who do it because it's good for business. If you're a charitable person, people like to deal with you. So this 10-point program really starts off as, hey, if I could change the world, if I could create $1 million for my business, and again, it's scalable, 100,000, 10,000, whatever. Who would I want to give it to? What's important to me? And then you could actually create a system in your business. What percentage of our net revenue or profit or gross amount are we going to give away every year? Number two, how are we going to get all of our clients to know about this and participate? Our staff, we want to get them involved. And we want to give them money to give to charities that are important to them. It's going to come as a deduction for us, but it's going to be money that they could use to give away. That's going to make you a very valuable employer. They're not going to go anywhere because you're doing great work. And then the community, just getting out there. So again, no cookie cutter, but there's so many wonderful things you can do as a business owner that nobody's telling you about. So reach out to me, mark@wealthinsurance.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I post at least 5 times a week, all on subjects like this. Send me a note, link in with me, and I'll send you the article, and you can read about it yourself.
Mark, what's one story that stood out to you that they were really not aware of any of this?
It's a great one. So I have a gentleman who passed away a year this past February. So he happened to be very generous with a charity. As a matter of fact, he was one of the most generous people in that charity. And about 15 years ago, we took his CPP, and we bought a $1.5 million life insurance policy. So the CPP was paying for this $1.5 million policy. When he died, his will instructed his executors to give that $1.5 million to a charity. That's actually called a donor advised fund, a DAF. It's like having your own charitable foundation. So that $1.5 million goes to his donor advised fund. he gets a receipt that saved his estate $750,000 of tax. But it goes a little step further. He instructed his donor advised fund that even though that money is professionally managed every year and there's no tax on the growth, he said 5% of that money every year is going to go to that charity that was very near and dear to his heart. So the charity was very nervous when he died. What's going to happen now that he's gone? When we contacted that charity to let them know that they're going to be receiving $50,000 every single year forever, the fundraiser, she started to cry. She couldn't believe his generosity, or that he had actually planned like that. And that was taking something like CPP that people don't even give any attention to. And he did not know that until we got together. So again, that was one of those goodwill stories where I went, wow, Mark Halpern, through sharing that wisdom, educated a client to do something great. And hopefully I get some of the dividends from that. I'm hoping that after 120 years, maybe I'll get some of this reward in the next world. But it feels pretty darn good as an advisor to do that. So if you're an advisor, you got to start doing this. There's nothing that feels better. It's like dopamine you can have every single day.
Mark, what was your youngest client that you've had?
So I had a 24-year-old. Again, this is a philanthropy story. He was in the real estate development world, and he needs to meet people who are wealthy to help him with his real estate development. So he happened to have had an experience with one of the hospitals downtown when he was a kid, and he felt a certain, appreciation for that. So I said, listen, what I'd like you to do is that we're going to buy a $1 million life insurance policy, and we're going to donate that $1 million life insurance policy to this charity. So what happened was, because of his age, the policy was only $4,000 a year payable for 20 years. So it's going to cost him $80,000. But because he's paying a charitable owned policy, he's getting a charitable receipt. So it's only costing him $40,000 over 20 years to make a $1 million donation to this hospital. Not only did they put him on the wall of legacy givers, but they started inviting him to the major donor events for people who are giving $100,000 a year, and he's getting in at the cost of $2,000 a year, right? And for this $1 million gift. So now he's talking to people that those are people that he wants to get involved in his real estate development. So again, that was getting back to that question from Nick. Incorporating charity into your business is a great way to get more business. So that was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, we have a question here from Daniel. Is what kind of legacy does Mark hope to leave behind?
Well, I've got 5 kids, and they're all married, and we've got 5 grandchildren now. It's been a busy 5 years. We got married we had 5 weddings in 4 years. So my legacy is personally that my kids should know that we're not here for ourselves. We're here to make a difference in this world and to be remembered. Everybody that we meet should be somebody that we help to be better or more inspired. There's a famous Greek commander in the army years ago. His name was Pericles. Pericles was a statesman, and he had a beautiful quote that I like to repeat all the time. And it's, what you leave behind is not what is engraved on stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. To me, that's a very powerful statement. And I kind of feel like that's something that, I'm working towards, but I want to have this $1 billion a year legacy. If I can get these individual advisors and charities, like this is all done, and I'm educating, mentoring, and coaching, to me, that would be the greatest legacy, to know that, people will remember me and actually be using some of this wisdom that is God-given. I'm not taking credit. I worked hard. I had to, but where do these ideas come from? They come from a higher side of it. So, and I feel like I'm the only guy in the world who can actually do this. So if advisors want to be involved, please reach out. We'd love to show you how it's all done. But that's the legacy I want to give. I've been very grateful for this business, grateful for this amazing country that my family came from overseas, and just very grateful that, it still has a lot of potential, and we have to do whatever we can ourselves to maintain that going forward.
And Mark, what does the new philanthropy mean to you today in today's world?
Yeah, so the old philanthropy is giving cash checks and credit cards to charity. That's it. And for most charities, that's what they want because it helps to keep the lights on and pay for bills. The new philanthropy is doing it smarter, being more tax efficient, and therefore being able to create gifts at the least cost possible or by converting tax into charity. And it's really around creating legacy gifts, not just gifts for today, but gifts for down the road. And I really believe that Canadians who are giving right now to charities, instead of giving all of it to one charity, why not go ahead and tithe a percentage of that amount that you give every year and maybe use a percentage of it and get a life insurance policy in place to create an even larger gift that will perpetuate you even after you're gone. I mean, it might be looking like the charity's taking a bit of you're dialing down their gift, but in fact, you're actually partnering with them to take what you're doing further and for them to be remembering you. And a lot of the charities today are now recognizing donors for legacy gifts, even though the money hasn't come in yet. So, it's one of those things that I hope that all charities will be spending time on. And I really do hope that, all generous people in Canada will be incorporating strategic philanthropy into their estate planning.
And Mark, what is it about charities that people are uneducated about?
Well, there are 87,000 charities in Canada. 87,000. And approximately 90% of them are going to 90% of all the charity money in Canada are going to maybe 24. Those are the legacy charities, the hospitals, the universities, the libraries. They're very important. But it's kind of like micro dollars, like you've ever heard of that. Like there are charities out there that your $200 a month or your $5,000 a year can monumentally change that charity. They will get other people to contribute, and now they'll be able to get more staff, or they'll be able to execute on more of their ideas, or help people really do so much more. And I really feel like that's really the key, that the charities are not talking about this because, first of all, they're stretched. They have people who are doing so many things, including this. Number two is they're concerned about asking for a future gift because then a donor might dial down their current gift, which is like biting off your nose in spite of your face. And also they don't necessarily have the technical knowledge or the language that we're speaking about today to be able to help donors understand that there's more. And, Ms. Liz, everybody today has ADD. We all are suffering from ADD, right? So we can't do the same old anymore. The new philanthropy is you can't send out a 2-paragraph email or leave a 1 minute and 30-second message on somebody's WhatsApp. They're going to cancel you. So how do you do it? You have to be able to do it smarter. You've got 30 to 60 seconds. And if we create these videos that if a fundraiser can go ahead and take a 30-second or 60-second video on CPP philanthropy and say, hey, to their donor who's single, widowed, or divorced, and say, hey, you might not know this about your CPP, and send it to them. Now they don't have to have that whole runway conversation. The donor goes, wow, I never heard that before. And now that gives permission to now go and engage and have more conversations. So that's, really where we have to go with this. It's how do we cut through all the clutter and really get clarity into people.
Absolutely. Well, this question popped up. I put it back down, but I'm going to bring it back up. Is what message do you hope viewers take from this live show? For my behalf, it's teaching educational awareness. That's all Teatime is all about, is bringing the awareness to the table that people might not know about the conversations that we're having, or the resources that they can reach out to. So for Mark, for you, what is your takeaway on this?
That you don't have to be Warren Buffett or Bill Gates to be a philanthropist. You can be a regular Joe, and you can do great things for small amounts, and you can do things more efficiently. And if using some money to get an insurance policy, insurance is really magic stuff. It's a way of, imagine if you had a driver and you hit a ball that went 350 yards. And if you had a putter, you could maybe go 100 or 80 yards. Well, insurance is like having that driver. It allows you to take the money that you're giving and have it go so much further. So I think what I want is for people to step away and go, hey, maybe there's a better way of looking at what I'm doing. Let me speak to this charity, or let me get in touch with a local community foundation, find out what's out there. Let me reach out to Mark or another advisor who is philanthropic that can help me sort of maybe craft my legacy to go from success to significance. I'm going to connect with Mark on LinkedIn and just get feeds on a regular basis to get inspired and hear more stories. I think that's it. I just think I want people to have an aha or wow moment and say, this is worth learning about. That's it.
And Mark, let's talk about insurance for the people that are listening that aren't aware of what insurance is, because a lot of people, they hear the word and they run.
Yeah, there's a lot of baggage out there around insurance. So I would say 80% of the population thinks of insurance as, I have a mortgage, I've got young kids, I've got to feed them, I've got to put them into school, and I need to get insurance to protect them. And for them, it's really a grudge purchase. I have to get it, like my car insurance or like my house insurance. And they carry around that mindset the rest of their life, even when they become very, very successful. But that baggage, that psychological baggage, so we have to realize there are three kinds of people who buy life insurance. One person buys insurance because they love somebody and they want to make sure that that person is well taken care of, that they maintain their lifestyle. A second kind of person who buys life insurance buys it because they hate the government and they know the government's going to have their hand out wanting anywhere between 27 and over 50% of their money. So they use insurance for pennies to create the money that the taxes will be when they both leave this world. And that's kind of like a joint last to die insurance policy. So that's the second type. And the third person who buys life insurance buys it because they don't like paying taxes while they're alive. They don't realize that life insurance is almost like a no limit TFSA. You can put as much money into it as you want. Your money grows tax-free. You can access that money tax-free, and you can pass it along virtually tax-free as well. So it would make sense, for someone, the government's taken away all these tax shelters or tax havens. There's no more non-CCPCs or surplus stripping. Your principal residence, no tax on that right now, at least at this point. TFSAs, no tax on that, but only $7,000 you can put aside every year. Lottery winnings, not taxed in Canada, just so you know. Philanthropy, great tax advantages, okay, as we've discussed. And life insurance. Other than these five things, if you have anything else that you're investing in, the government is a partner in your money. So wouldn't it make sense to look at this life insurance as part of a comprehensive estate plan or planning? And you have to look at it not necessarily as that you need life insurance, but it could be that there's an opportunity here versus your default of not having it. And you have to measure the ROI in that versus anything. It all comes down to having a conversation.
Right? Just open up and have a conversation. What was it that you said at the beginning of the show? Clean your window.
Clean your thank you very much. This has been cleaning your window, okay? So now you look out the window and go, wow, I'm seeing things very differently than I looked at before. And wow, thank you, Miss Liz, for bringing Mark on the show and learning all of this. That's why I really appreciate what you do. You're getting to an audience that they wouldn't hear what you're doing, or they would never hear this. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. Mark, one word that defines your mission right now, what would it be?
One word: purpose.
Purpose.
Purpose. Living a purposeful life. I feel that I have a lot of gifts. I've spent 35 years. It took me 35 years to be an overnight success. I've had more failures than successes along the way, but each failure, people think that failure, the opposite of failure is success. Failure is the entry fee to be successful. You have to fail. And through that, I learned things, and I pivoted and ratcheted and pivoted and ratcheted. And I feel that I've gotten to a point where, if I had the cure for cancer and I figured it out in my own garage, I'd be so excited. But who's going to believe me and who's going to listen to me? Where do I go first? So I don't have the cure for cancer, but I have some information and some wisdom that nobody knows about, or very few people know about. And I feel like I'm the only one out there, or a handful of us are really out there, really talking to people about it. So that's what gets me excited. It's waking up and feeling a sense of purpose, a sense of helping, a sense of taking the gifts that you've been given, the God-given gifts, and actually, leveraging to helpful. And I have such a long way to go still, Elizabeth. I feel like, I need team, I need help, I need more people to be involved with this. And I feel like the runway is getting shorter. I just turned 64. I feel young. I feel great, but I got to get this done while the sun is shining. So that's my next 20-year mission.
And Mark, if you just want to recap on the 1 billion moonshot.
Yeah. So again,
for the late listeners that just came in.
Yeah, we're trying to create a national community of 100 professional advisors and charities that if each of us are creating $10 million now or in the future with legacy gifts, you have 100 times $10 million, that's $1 billion. And that's not pie in the sky. It's kind of like crowdfunding. And we can actually create $1 billion a year for charity, helping generous Canadians. And again, you don't have to be Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, regular people, that they can know that they can make a difference. They can go from success to significance, often just by converting tax into charity or finding things inside of their portfolio of assets, like insurance policies they have, securities they've appreciated, or if they've sold a piece of property, have a big tax bill that year, or they've sold a business, they have a big tax bill that year. Those are the years that you can be more generous to charity than ever to mitigate those taxes. So that's the idea. I want to be known as the person who created that $1 billion community.
And Mark, you just mentioned crowdfunding. We have a viewer that wants to know what is crowdfunding?
Crowdfunding is, let's say I'm sure all of us have received notes from people who've gone through very, very difficult medical challenges, and they put out a Go Ask or a charity campaign to say, they need money, they need $100,000 for the medical treatment or for bills or whatever. So then what happens is people understand the nature of this person's plight that they're in, they verify it, and now everybody contributes small amounts. It could be $18, $20, $50, $100, $500, and now that's called crowdfunding. That now creates that $100,000 or $200,000 that they need. That's charitable money, because the money you're giving is a charitable donation. And what's happened is small amounts, micro dollars, created macro amounts to give away. That's crowdfunding. So when it comes to the $1 billion community, people can be giving small amounts, but you have thousands of those people giving. That's crowdfunding to create this $1 billion.
And is there taxes on crowdfunding?
No, any donations that you make to charity, you can use charitable donations to mitigate up to 75% of your net taxable income. And anything over and above that can be carried forward for up to 5 years. So as long as you're dealing with a registered charity, one of the 87,000 charities in Canada, or a donor advised fund or the like, community foundation, you should check out every city. Every has their own community foundation. Contact them. They do miraculous work. They can help educate you as well. But whenever you make those donations, you get a charitable receipt that'll help you save tax.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. And what is your final message to all the listeners today?
It's actually a good story. This fellow, Nick, came to, I was sponsoring something through the CAGP called Legacy. And he attended one of my lectures, and he was a real Renaissance man, late 70s, never got married, no kids, etc. And we met and we saw that he had about a $1.5 million tax bill that would be paid. And so I started to work with him to try to craft a legacy gift that could turn that tax into charity. He was involved with space engineering, physics, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, but he was traveling and always busy. And one time I called him up and he said, "Mark, sorry, I can't speak to you. I'm at North York General Hospital. I had a heart attack, but as soon as I get out, I'll be in touch with you." Anyway, the following week, I saw the obituary notice in the newspaper that Nick had passed away, and I went to his funeral. It was a very small funeral. He didn't have family. He was involved with some hobby clubs, but I thought, what a shame. He has to give $1.5 million to the government, and we could have created a legacy that helped his name go forward, but also to do some really good. So I think the main message here, Elizabeth, is like, take care of these things while the sun is shining. We never know. Like my father, of blessed memory, when he died at age 50 suddenly of a heart attack, you never know when your time is up. So you have to take care of this stuff now. Don't put things off for another day, because that other day might never come. And it would be a really terrible thing to have had an opportunity to help so many people and helped your family and passed along values, etc., had you not, not taken the time to actually invest in this area. So that's my message. Don't wait.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for joining me and bringing all of this education to the table and awareness. For anybody that would like to know more about Mark, if you would just like to spell out your website so that my audio listeners can find you.
Sure. It's Wealth Insurance, WEALTH, insurance, INSURANCE.com, wealthinsurance.com. Somebody can email me, Mark, M-A-R-K, at wealthinsurance.com. I'm on WhatsApp. They can contact me that way as well. Or call us. You can call our office, 416-871-4357. Happy to help you in any way. As I said, we want to help you and help your advisors to do more and better for you and for the world at large.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. And thank you guys for all tuning in and bringing your questions to the table, because I could not do this without all of you guys. It takes a team to get these tea times out there. I'm just going to do a quick recap of what today's tea time was, and then I'll be back at 7 p.m. with another incredible story to bring to the table. What a powerful and meaningful conversation today. Mark, thank you for bringing such honesty, wisdom, and humanity to the tea time table. Your story reminds us that some of life's greatest missions are born from moments of pain, loss, and unexpected turning points. Today's conversation was about much more than financial planning. It was about family, protection, purpose, legacy, and understanding that our greatest impacts often come from how we serve others. You shared something deeply important. Success may provide comfort, but significancy creates lasting meaning. Through your work, you continue helping people prepare not only financially, but emotionally, encouraging families to have conversations many avoid, while also inspiring generosity, compassion, and long-term impact through charitable giving and legacy planning. One of the strongest takeaways from today is the greatest inheritance we leave behind may not be money, but love, guidance, value, and the lives we touch along the way. Here's some food for thought to leave with everyone today. If your story became your legacy tomorrow, what would the people around you remember most about how you lived, loved, and served? Because true wealth is not only what we accumulate, it is what continues to grow through others because we existed. Thank you, Mark, for reminding listeners that purpose and humanity belongs at the center of every legacy. Until next time, keep leading with heart, keep building significancy, and keep serving real life tea, one conversation at a time. And I'll be back at 7, and we'll do this all over again.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It was great to be on the show. And if we want to talk about some other things in the future, please reach out. I'm sure there's lots more wisdom we can dispense of.
Absolutely.